how do you make this fit your everyday life? How does it fit the budget? Do you spend more or less? Does quality of meat matter? Those kinds of things. I'd love to hear about.
Yeah, for someone just starting out, my best advice, if you're just starting out, the first thing I always tell people is don't commit to this for the rest of your life because then it becomes very overwhelming and it's hard to wrap your brain around it. Give it 60 days is great, but if you could even commit, like I'm going to do this for 30 days, I'm going to do it strict. That's my best advice I give to someone starting carnivore. A lot of people start it and they're like, oh, I did good all week. I'll have my Diet Coke or I'll have a little sweet on Saturday. You're going to perpetuate that addiction to sugar. You're going to make it so much harder. It is so much easier for people that just abstain. And part of the big problem that a lot of people have is addiction to food. That's a whole other topic. But in terms of making this successful, the cost of it, for example, you mentioned carnivore is so much less expensive if you do the honest math. And a lot of people don't do the honest math. Like I don't have side dishes, sauces, spices. I don't go to the gas station anymore and get junk food. I just drink water. Like if you account for all of those things, carnivore is much less expensive than the alternative. And also I'm eating way less. Like on the standard American diet, I was always hungry. So I'm just constantly eating. Now, eat a couple eggs for breakfast and some patties in the afternoon, and I'm satiated. I'm full. The other thing is, this is hard to calculate, but in terms of the cost, this is the truth. I've heard from so many people, no matter what you are doing in life, when you're eating a proper human diet and you heal your body and you have this extra energy and you're making better, wiser decisions, you will be more successful at whatever you're doing. And that has been a common thread amongst the 60 people we interviewed that was unexpected for me. It's like, for example, we interviewed pastors Jimmy and Annette. They've been running a church in Texas for 20 years. And after 1 year on carnivore, their congregation doubled in size. And they attributed it to carnivore. And I'm not trying to overhype carnivore, but everyone has a similar story to that. And it makes sense because if you're in a brain fog, inflammation, stupor, plopping down on the couch because you can barely do anything and you can't make proper decisions, your life is a result of the decisions you make. If you're able to have the energy to make proper decisions, your life's going to be better. Plus, if you have the energy to then perform and like do what you need to do to reach your goals and things like that, you're going to be much more successful. So if you take all of those things into account, carnivore is the best deal in the world, in my opinion, even though meat can be expensive. The last thing I'll say real quick on the expensive part of it is the primary part of my diet for over 2 years now, it's been eggs. And eggs, the price went up for a while. It's coming back down now, but eggs are one of the best things in the world to eat. I literally eat them every single day. I could live off of eggs alone, I think, and I would absolutely be thriving. But eggs and burger patties, I do a lot of YouTube videos where I'm cooking up a beautiful steak. That's just because it's cinematic and it's cool and it's special. The truth is the most what I eat is it's eggs and burger patties, which is inexpensive, relatively speaking.
A few bucks. Yeah, you're right about the eggs. The prices are very, very affordable, regardless of the quality you're going to get. I just bought, 4 dozen in my neighborhood for less than $20 from somebody who was just selling them. So yeah, I couldn't agree more. Even I just picked up like a strip. That's the entire roll of strips, and I can cut that down into 10 steaks. And that was like $7 a pound. Like you can make this really accessible and affordable. So I really appreciate that. I also wanted to ask you something we kind of mentioned last time, but we didn't go into much detail. I wanted to hear your experience with fasting. One of the natural things that people experience is something you've already mentioned, which is you feel very satiated. You're so full with the meals. We don't think about fasting as like this forced thing. It tends to come quite naturally. Can you tell us about your experience with fasting?
Absolutely. I fasted a little bit before carnivore a couple of years ago, and I felt amazing. And when I started carnivore, it reminded me, I was like, when I feel so good just doing regular carnivore, I feel like that time I fasted before. It's kind of interesting how that works. But on carnivore, I've done several fasts. I've done multiple 3-day fasts. I also did an 8-day water fast at one point. And then more recently, I've been exploring doing dry fasting, which I got to be careful, Casey, because whenever I talk about this, everybody flips out and freaks out. I always recommend there's a really good book. I'm not telling anyone what to do. I'm not telling you to wet fast, dry fast. Everyone's on their own journey, but there's a great book called The Phoenix Protocol that talks about dry fasting and all the research that's been done on dry fasting. I'm probably only going to be doing dry fasting going forward. I felt that much better doing dry fasting, but I think fasting's incredible. The thing I tell people with fasting and the thing I tell people with carnivore and the thing I tell people, even with all the discussions that are coming up in the news right now with Tylenol, is I like to look at the football field analogy. I don't know if anyone here has heard this before. Some people have talked about it before, but I imagine all of humans on Earth on a football field. And imagine like that's us eating on Earth, right? That entire football field. Now, if you go down to the very end of the football field and you find that very last blade of grass on the end, that represents what humans have been doing for the last like 100 years or so, eating the standard American diet or whatever. Throughout that whole football field, we have fasted over and over and over again. We didn't have the blessing of being able to just snap our fingers and have food here. Like we would have, again, the analogy of the woods here in Wisconsin, I would have went out there, hunted a big animal, feasted, and then I would have been lucky to maybe eat again 2-3 days, maybe a week. It's natural what humans have done since the start of time. It's the same thing with carnivore. Like through that whole football field, we've been eating primarily meat. We've been eating vegetables as starvation food here or there, but it's primarily been meat since the start of time. When people say they're scared of starting carnivore, I'm like, you should be scared of that blade of grass on the end, what we're doing right now, where everybody's sick. Like everybody is sick and metabolically sick and overweight, and they're worried about carnivore. I'm like, you should be worried about the opposite of carnivore. So sorry, I kind of went on a tangent there, but I think fasting's absolutely incredible. I highly recommend it. I've never felt better than when I fasted. And there's lots of evidence to it as well, going into autophagy and cell regeneration and things like that. So it's a regular part of my life. I try to keep it somewhat random, but I try to do it regularly.
Got it. Okay. And dry fasting, just to clarify for the listener, dry fasting means you're not taking in water as well.
No water is all. And there's a couple types of dry fast where you don't even like take a shower or anything like that.
Got it.
So you don't even have to touch your skin. But yeah, it's no water. I know it sounds crazy. I have a friend of mine, Lauren Tucker. She's from the UK. We interviewed her for our documentary. She's the one that suggested I'd read the book. And the book, again, everyone should check it out. It's really incredible. They've done this in Russia, like thousands and thousands of people, and overcome crazy health issues by doing dry fasts. And they've actually studied it, and they have paperwork on it. But Lauren did one for 7 days. And when she told me that, Casey, I'm like, that's impossible. You can't live more than 3 days without water. You're going to die. And it's another thing that is not true. Like, that's not true. Your body will actually, through a process called fat metabolism, your body will metabolize the fat and actually turn it into water. And in these studies in Russia they did, and I noticed it for myself, they'll measure the urine output. And there's people that were doing this for 14 days. And by day 14, they had more urine output than they did on day 10 than they did on day 6 without drinking any water whatsoever. So it's like, where's that coming from? Your body's able to create it and metabolize it. There's all sorts of benefits to both types of fasting, but I always encourage people, just do some more research.
Yeah. What's the name of the book again?
The Phoenix Protocol by August Dunning, I believe it is. Dunning.
Got it. Okay, I'll look it up and we'll link it in the show notes. And this has to be somewhat related. Most of us can think about like a bear in hibernation, for example. And we think about the bear getting fat and tends to eat a little bit more fructose at the end of summer if it can find it, adds the weight, and then goes and sleeps. And we think about the food, it's like, yeah, the bear is burning off fat, and that's how it's able to go, months and months without eating. But oftentimes you don't really think about the water. I had never considered that. And I don't know who brought it up to me that yes, burning the fat will release more water, and the bear doesn't need to drink for months and months. Not only is it not eating, it's also not drinking, it's not dying. So that must be a related mechanism that I think is absolutely interesting.
Yeah, I never thought about the bear analogy. That's so true with hibernation. You always think, yeah, they got the fat. There it is.
Right. So there's the water. Yeah. So interesting.